The following is the exact federal courtroom testimony from the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City, and should only be used for educational and entertainment purposes. Please use caution before proceeding. Press the seventh day of the Diddy trial was going to focus on Cassie, but then at 10:58 a.m., nobody anticipated that 50 Cent, whose real name is Curtis Jackson, would enter the courtroom entourage. There was no media alert, and there was no indication of what was going to happen. He walked straight to the front, paused, and whispered something to the bailiff. A few seconds later, the courtroom erupted in applause, as if the following events weren't just startling, they were historic, because of what 50 Cent disclosed about Kim Porter, the files she had, and how she lived in constant fear of Diddy after the judge verified that Curtis Jackson had been sworn in and was prepared to testify, depicted a story more sinister than any album lyric or headline. This was a murder charge made under oath, not a fight. The mood in the courtroom was somber, even before anything out of the ordinary occurred. It was the seventh day of the trial, and the majority of onlookers anticipated more of the same emotional testimony from Cassie Ventura, regular cross-examinations, and even another intense exchange between Diddy's defense team and the prosecution. But nobody was ready for what transpired at precisely 10:46 a.m. As heads turned and the big wooden doors at the back of the courtroom creaked open, a tall, well-known figure walked in wearing a Curtis Jackson. 50 Cent was wearing a fitted charcoal suit without a tie. He strode purposefully, his every step resonating through the quiet room, and he didn't speak or look at the media or the people seated in the gallery. The gallery erupted in screams, and even Cassie, who had remained composed over the days of torturous testimony, tensed her gaze and fixed it on 50 Cent as he moved towards the front. The bailiff turned to face the judge, who delivered a dotty, seated at the defense table, turned slowly at first, without reacting, but then his face stiffened. He leaned towards his lawyer and murmured something, his eyes fixated on 50. This was the solitary nod that signaled the moment was sanctioned. 50 Cent approached the front and politely asked to testify under oath, saying that he wasn't there for show and that there would be no publicity or theatrics. He had come to tell the truth, and Judge Harmon was obviously interested. Cautious inquired as to whether he had provided any supporting documentation for his testimony, and 50 took a manila folder from beneath his arm that contained screenshots, voicemails, and photographs. He stated unequivocally that the judge had examined the submission, and after. There was a little pause, but after a nod, you may move forward. In a matter of seconds, all of the reporters in the room were tapping away at text messages, creating hashtags in real time, and 50 testimonies were trending before he had even entered the witness stand. The man who was known for his bravado, trolling and public feuds appeared different inside the courtroom, which was pin-prop silence. He remarked, "I came here today not because I want to, but because someone who 50 Cent's initial remarks as he took his seat on the witness stand were, 'Trust me is gone, and I believe the truth needs to be told.' Kim told me everything he said, and their chat began informally. In 2017, he explained to the court that although we weren't best friends, we respected one another and had private conversations. I was one of the few individuals she felt comfortable confiding in without fear of criticism." Kim Porter revealed her worry in those private moments, saying, "If something happens to me, it won't be an accident." Then the shocking revelation came. Disclosed that Kim allowed him to listen to voicemails, one of which jumped out and showed him screenshots of emails, text message backups, and a password-protected file kept in an encrypted cloud folder. According to 50, Kim thought Diddy was responsible for the message. which came from an anonymous number warning her to quit looking for things that don't concern you. Although she didn't have any documentation of the particular call, he acknowledged it, but she knew Kim had been writing a book, which she called her redemption log, and he revealed that she was aware of his tendencies and how he worked. He claimed that she was not writing it for fame or money, but rather so that her children would one day comprehend her situation. But she was afraid, telling 50 that Diddy had been monitoring her whereabouts, that her phone seemed tapped, and that she had seen the same automobiles parked outside her house for several days in a succession, all while being monitored by security cameras. When something would go wrong in her house without warning, she would say, "He's watching me. I can feel it." 50 said that he paused, and Cassie closed her eyes for a moment, as though she was taking it all in. She was afraid of him. 50 added, terrified actually, and she had reason to be. He then revealed to the court that Kim had once shown him a screenshot of an Uber trip record that purported to be Diddy's assistant, showing up at her house without permission at 3:41 a.m. She stated that he was there to remind her who was in charge, not to converse. The prosecution inquired as to whether 50 had saved any of this, and he replied that he had. As the courtroom leaned, the judge permitted the submission of 3 screenshots and a voicemail dated, "I'm not here for drama," concluding that Kim knew she wouldn't receive justice in life, and that perhaps she would now in death. As the storm grew, 50 Cent opened his manila folder and took out a printed email. He claimed that the page was lifted from Kim's previous stylist, who, he said, was unnamed for safety reasons, had been close to both Kim and Diddy for years. According to 50, the email, which was sent 2 weeks prior to Kim's passing, told her to drop the book and stop writing her memoir, stating that he knew it wasn't. The most shocking part of the email was not just the warning. It was a detail buried 3 paragraphs deep. "He bought a gold casket a month ago for you." Fear-mongering 50 told the jury that was a warning from someone who had seen too much. "When I first read that line, I thought it was hyperbole, but after she died, and I saw what she was buried in, I believed it," 50 said, as the courtroom fell silent. He told the judge that Kim had privately confided that she was in possession of genuine video files from Diddy's notorious parties, according to which he claimed she had films of him and other men doing things I can't mention in court. He also claimed that the evidence was backed up to a secret drive, a drive that inexplicably disappeared from Kim's house during what the police later determined to be a routine break-in. He stopped and faced the jury, telling them that the video had been recorded. The prosecution asked if Kim had ever given names, and 50 people nodded. Clive Davis Andre. According to 50, Harold and another millionaire, Kim claimed to have all of them on tape, not just their conversations. Kim was aware that sharing the video would cost her everything, including her career, safety, and possibly even her life. But she told it. He concluded part 3 by telling me, "If I go down, I'm not going down quiet." Kim had sent him a terrifying message via encrypted email. "If I disappear, if I die, if anything happens to me that feels." The courtroom fell silent as 50 Cent returned to the stand and questioned the judge. "You know who did it. You always will." He then slowly folded the paper and continued. "Now the rest of the world will too." After careful consideration, the judge granted permission to present a file that Kim Porter had previously shown him, titled simply, "Masters and Murders." 50 explained that Kim thought Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace Biggie were murdered, not because street feud, but by strategic behind-the-scenes choices made by influential figures in the industry who believed both men were too vocal, too strong, and too in charge of their own musical legacies. Kim allegedly discovered this through A. She informed me in 2018 that they intended to create idols out of deceased guys because they are unable to suit in court, which shocked 50 people, according to a series of voicemails, studio recordings, and second-hand discussions. Kim once confided that she had overheard a private conversation with Andre Harrell and another unidentified executive while visiting New York in the late 1990s. They were supposedly talking about how Tupac's influence was endangering the future of East Coast industry control. She didn't have audio, but she maintained notes, handwritten, dated, and signed by her. She knew too much. 50 told the jury, and she had too much when questioned by the prosecution. Why she didn't go public? 50 glanced directly at the jurors because she was terrified since she was outnumbered, and because she knew what happened to Pac and Biggie. He presented printed transcriptions of Kim's audio notes, where she mentioned names Suge Knight, Andre Harrell, Jimmy Iovine, and indicated that they all knew Diddy had been involved in manipulating tension that helped develop into bloodshed. Everything Biggie had, his publishing, his earnings, it got locked away when he died. That benefited brands, that benefited Diddy. The gallery gasped. One jury wiped tears from her eyes. The rest leaned forward. The court was no longer only looking at Kim's death. They were beginning to fear that she may have held the last remaining thread to unravel one of the largest unsolved mysteries in hip-hop history. When 50 Cent came to the microphone for the 5th time, his tone altered. It was darker, heavier. He wasn't simply testifying about events, he was giving voice to the aftermath of a silent woman. You heard what John Deal said, began Kim, wasn't discovered in her bed. She was found on the bathroom floor. Yet when the news broke, the official statement indicated she died quietly. In her sleep. That was a lie. He paused. Then I got an email the night before her funeral from someone who claimed to have worked with the original coroner. They said the first autopsy showed traces of a toxin that shouldn't be there. They didn't specify what it was, only that it was marked and that the entire report was sealed. The judge permitted 50 to present a printed copy of the email, which was a statement from one of Kim's personal assistants and had names redacted. She used to tell me, if I die suddenly, check the cameras, check the vents. 50 also submitted photos of Kim's home being ransacked, allegedly taken the night of her death. 2 laptops missing, 1 backup drive gone, and a handwritten sticky note taped to a mirror that simply said, "Don't forget who you are." The jury was hushed. Then 50 dropped the next bomb. She had a book contract. It was done, manuscript sent in. They were finalizing cover art. Next thing I know, that publisher went dark. Lawyers got involved. Everything halted, and the book just vanished. He revealed an NDA sent by a company linked to Diddy's legal team, demanding any reference of Diddy be removed from the final draft, or the publisher would risk litigation. And just like that, the truth disappeared. 50 said the courtroom felt colder when 50 Cent brought up Diddy's preoccupation with having full custody of Kim. Told me bluntly, if he ever gets custody, I'm done because he'll have no reason to keep me around. The atmosphere in the courtroom altered once more as the focus shifted from Kim's concern for her life to that of her children. According to him, Kim was getting ready to relocate discreetly to a new home with a new name and private schooling for the girls in a different state. She kept this from Diddy and even from the majority of her friends, but he discovered that, gruesomely, he had filed a report from a private investigator verifying that Diddy had taken a journey from New York to Los Angeles 2 days prior to Kim's passing, journey records were time-stamped, and the private jet manifest contained Diddy too. According to a source close to Kim Diddy, assistants and an unidentified legal advisor turned up at her house the following day without being invited. The arrival footage was recorded by CCTV outside the house, which 50 said was then deleted. He presented the court with a digital copy of a letter Kim had written to her lawyer in 2018, just months before she passed away, detailing Diddy's increasingly unpredictable behavior. Kim went silent for 50 seconds, and 2 days later, she disappeared. He made clear warnings and harsh threats, saying, "I'll never leave him without consequences." 50 used a terrifying last statement from Kim to wrap up this section of the testimony. "If anything happens to me," the jury was clearly shaken and had heard enough for one day, yet the trial went on in complete silence. Even Diddy stopped writing in his notebook. His hand went lifeless, and his eyes remained fixed on the floor. "Don't let him raise my daughters" was far from finished. The courtroom had already heard a number of unsettling claims from 50 Cent. But things became more somber when he introduced the missing CCTV film from Kim Porter's house. Speaking to the court and jury, he said that Kim had informed him during one of their final phone calls that she had surveillance cameras put not only outside, but also inside the corridor, bedrooms, and even facing her front door. She claimed to have developed paranoia, saying, "They know I'm monitoring them now, and I have proof stored in 2 locations, one on my hard drive and one on the cloud. If something were to happen to me, they had better not claim it was pneumonia." 50 then gave a home tech contractor's declaration, which was completed 2 weeks before to Kim's death, confirming that the cameras were operating flawlessly and that the system was set up to automatically transfer video to a safe cloud account. But the tech discovered that within 48 hours of Kim's passing, the admin credentials were accessed remotely from an IP address connected to Diddy's own media business, Revolt Media, deleted files after viewing footage. When the LAPD requested the tapes, they later stated that none could be recovered. "You're telling me she had a whole surveillance system?" 50-year asked the courtroom, "and the only footage missing is the night she died." He paused. "You know who had motive, you know who had access, and now you know who had the power to cover it up." The jury was obviously horrified. Juror 6 clenched her jaw. Jury 11 scribbled. Hurriedly, Diddy sat still. His lawyers whispered behind him. The implication was loud. The truth may have been captured on camera, but someone made sure it disappeared with the tension was already high when 50 Cent released another bombshell. Kim Porter sent her ex-boyfriend Alb a voice message a few days before she passed away. 50 stated, "You can't hear it now," but she said, and I quote, "They know I'm going to. I'm afraid to speak." Kim informed Alb, "Yeah, he keeps asking about my hard drive. I think he's planning," as he displayed a snapshot of a conversation that was time-stamped just 48 hours before Kim was discovered dead. Dye said, "Albie did go public about this in 2020 on Instagram Live, but no one took it seriously. If I disappear, it wasn't me." The court sat in stunned silence. No one was ready for the twist when the prosecution introduced that screenshot as evidence. 50 testified that 2 days after Kim's funeral, he received a private call from an unidentified number. Voice on the other end simply said, "Back off or you'll end up like her." Investigators found that the number was associated with a burner phone that had been paid for with cash, but the SIM had set off a tower close to a notorious bad boy office in New York. The judge asked if he had reported it, and the courtroom gasped 50 times as they stared at Diddy. "I don't scare easy," he said, "and I sure as hell don't back down when someone makes a threat." When it came time for 50 Cent's closing remarks, the courtroom leaned in all jurors, journalists, and even Diddy. I said 50, and nothing happened, but now I'm saying it in front of the jury. Let's see who tries to stop me. After taking a deep breath, 50 paced slowly and said, I'm not here because I need press. I'm not here for clout. Locking eyes with the jury, I'm here because I owe it to Kim, he said. Kim wasn't insane. She wasn't that crazy, reckless, a mother attempting to shield her children, and knowledgeable about Diddy that even his attorneys likely don't know. Then, with a sharp edge, he said, Diddy isn't just an abuser. He's not. He is dangerous if he is just controlling. If anything happens to me, it's him. Kim told me directly. She expressed fear that he would destroy her. Or worse, 50 submitted a final document, a signed memo from a former assistant at a music label that described Diddy's obsession with cleaning up anyone who became a liability. The memo contained the line, "Dead women don't talk," which Diddy always says. I'm not a lawyer, 50 said, but I know what murder looks like when it's dressed in $1 million suit. You guys have the evidence, now do something with it. The courtroom froze, then he turned to Diddy past him slowly and looked down at him. You always assumed I was playing chess, but he said in a gravelly voice that I was actually holding the checkmate. Diddy didn't blink, but his face was blank, not arrogant or smug, and the jury yes. 50 Cent stepped down. The courtroom fell silent, and every eye followed him as he passed Diddy's table. Diddy didn't flinch, but the tension between them was nuclear. This wasn't a trolling or rap feud. Testimony legal under oath, and now part of the federal record, the judge called for a quick pause. But nobody moved. Reporters were too stunned to speak. Jurors sat gripping the edges of their chairs, and the prosecution looked like they had just been handed the final nail for the coffin they'd been building all week, and in the corner, quietly a clerk slid the last document into the evidence folder, the voicemail. 50 Cent said Kim Porter sent just 1 week before her death, a voice barely above a whisper, recorded at 2:03 a, was saying, if they tell you I died of pneumonia, don't believe it. Check the cameras, check the servers. If you're hearing this, he got home. The courtroom would later learn this recording had been saved on a protected server. Not even Kim's family had known it existed, but 50 Diddy had protected it. Just like he had promised, hair outside the media had already gone into overdrive. Hashtags like number justice for Kim Porter and number Diddy trial bombshell trended Globe news tickers, carried headlines that hadn't been feasible even days earlier. 50 Cent says, Diddy had Kim assassinated. Kim Porter anticipated her own death and left behind proof, and revolt media. Diddy's previously impregnable business began to hemorrhage stockholders, asked for emergency audit sponsors, suspended contracts, even longtime partners slowly withdrew collaborations from their websites and platforms. It was the slow demise of a giant, not from a scandal, but from the avalanche of truth back in court. The jury sat in stunned silence. The case was no longer just about abuse. It was about erasing a woman, deleted a truth, erased an a media machine once owned and controlled. Finally out of Diddy's reach, the judge reconvened court and made it clear. All evidence submitted today will move on to the next part of this trial. No delays will be permitted. This testimony will not be stricken. And that was it, as Diddy sat there, chin low, shoulders heavy. He seemed less like the billionaire who established bad boy and more like the man Kim warned everyone about for the first time in his career. He had no microphone, no audience cheering, and no control. Just silence, the type that follows truth, finally being heard.